trying to do
they get
is
scared because it
suppress the
says
information.
they send me the screenshots. This website will steal your information. This website, all this kind of nonsense.
And they do, and they'll log off. But what I'm saying is work harder to get back on, because, or to go into YouTube, go in through other routes, because they need to have the information that we're sharing.
And what it's come down to is certain internet providers. We know Comcast because we've spoken to third-party managers of Comcast's community standards evaluation. So they contract with somebody that was over in Europe, and they're kids. They go, oh, they're pro-America, they're pro-Israel. Check the box. Our providers can't get into them. And Comcast says, well, we subscribe to a verified service, and you get a big runaround. And we've had our technicians look carefully. Nothing wrong with our website. So as a backup, youtube.com/TheUnitedWest. You can go there. It should be up momentarily.
It is live right now on YouTube and Facebook.
All right, we're live on YouTube and Facebook and on the TheUnitedWest for whomever can get there. All right, Tom Trento officially starting in a couple of seconds here with Susie Gold today live in the studio. Good, very nice.
Thank you very much.
Purple royal colors.
Royal colors.
That's good. And
and very spiritual colors.
Purple.
And I think that this is an appropriate time to really enhance our spirituality, because this is a war that really we need. We know God is on our side, on the right side, and now more than ever we need to connect spiritually.
We're gonna connect the dots to what you're saying, because yesterday we had Dr. Ronnie Wexler on. Did you watch the show yesterday? I
absolutely watched it. Yes.
You were indisposed.
Yes.
But you watched the show. And earlier on Monday in our staff meeting, he sounded not like Ronnie Wexler usually sounds. He's usually, hey, it's a little restless. Everything will be okay. I mean, he was bringing in this could be very, very bad, and the spiritual element. And so in light of what's going on in Israel, in light of our work in Israel and here, we decided to put this morning show together, 9 to 10, maybe longer, depending. And then probably an afternoon show, depending on the facts on the ground in Israel. We have a whole host of people lined up. Unfortunately, Mai Golan just contacted me. She's a member of the Knesset, Benjamin Netanyahu's party, Likud, and they are swamped with all the security stuff. So she can't make the morning show. She's going to try the afternoon show when we do that, which will be evening for her. Things may calm down. It's 4:00 right now, 2 minutes after 4 in Israel. But momentarily, we're bringing in our dear friend, Clare Lopez.
Yeah.
Tell the folks, Susie, a little bit about Clare before we bring her in. Then we're going to set the stage to what we're doing in this first hour.
Yeah. Clare is, first of all, a phenomenal woman and a very intelligent woman who I know all of you are going to be very, very excited to hear about. Clare is, she's the founder and president of Lopez Liberty. And what is that? There's a mission to educate Americans of the national security threat from the Islamic movement, Muslim Brotherhood, and its collaborators among the ranks of Marxist communists in this country. She certainly is an expert in this field and very easy to listen to. She's an intelligence expert, and with a focus on the Middle East, it couldn't be a more appropriate time than now to have her on our show. She's a prolific speaker, and we'll have a wealth of knowledge. And I think that's what's great about our show, is that you're going to get up-to-date information. You will hear from experts, subject experts in this field. So you're getting accurate information. You won't hear on CNN, you won't hear on NBC, nor in mainstream media. And we know that they're slanted, those networks, and this administration is slanted. In fact, there's an article from Carolyn Glick, who in her article, which is posted in jns.org, she states that Washington's agenda is completely wrong and incendiary. And so in reading her article, you can really see how misinformation, because right now, those people that are in Washington, those people within the Biden administration they are not getting accurate information. They're a progressive left. They are much more supportive of terrorists and Palestinian terrorists and Hamas. And there's blame about this war. That's just not true. This is an anti-Semitic attack. This is an anti-Jewish attack. That's what this is. But we'll go through all of those
We're going to
details.
go through it. And I have an idea, grocery store in Israel. We have Carolyn Glick's article. She's a friend of ours for many years. She worked with Frank Gaffney for many years. She also served in the IDF, in the intelligence division of the IDF, and then became a special advisor to Benjamin Netanyahu. So this article that you just referenced, we are going to go through this word by word because she lays out a chronology. Now, our show is going to draw upon a variety of resources. It's going to deal with some of the, no pun intended, explosive elements, the actual war footage. We have some amazing footage for you. We have several producers. Michelle's one of our producers
Michelle
on this.
Terrace,
We have
the
Monty
founder
back
of
there.
Dexit.
Michelle's the producer, yes.
Yes.
She's producing.
She's been, I think, up all night getting information.
We have Monty Cristo back there. He is also sending stuff. I asked for some maps. We're going to put some maps up to give a context over. Look, and we're following I-24 live. Israel under fire, over 1,000 rockets launched from Gaza.
Could you imagine if that number of rockets hit Miami or hit Florida? How would the United States respond? That kind of barrage of attacks that are really, it's overwhelming the Iron Domes, which, as we know, the Iron Domes intercept those rockets. But there's been such a large barrage of those rockets that the Iron Domes actually, they don't hit every one. They just hit those that they feel that are going to hit, or they know that are going to hit in populated areas. But they have certainly overwhelmed the Iron Dome, that technology.
In a couple of minutes, we're bringing Clare on. But if you see Susie Gold or me looking at phones and computers, we're doing that because this is a real-time, live, very active, no green screens, we're live here, very active production we're putting together. It looks like Clare is with us. We'll bring her on in a minute. Mark, I just sent you a series of maps. Play the last one, the video of a rocket that it's coming there. It was just sent to you. And let me make sure. Yep, you got it. And it's Michelle sent a grocery store in Israel. We've been in many of them. And it looks like in the video, minimal damage because some of the rockets, and we're going to show you pictures of the rockets that the Hamas are firing. They're not Roman candles. They're not little tiny. They're 12 feet long,
which
now,
we saw,
with guidance capabilities.
Share the video.
Yeah, here we go with this video. A grocery store. Oh, it's on. So the people are watching. Yeah, this is a.
אני לא מוצא את הזה.
כמה? בוא נוריד את החשמל.
איפה הזה שלך?
אהרון, אבל...
לא, הוא למטה. קפץ לך הפחת. קפץ, בוא. בוא.
It looked like much.
That was minimal damage. Some of the places that have been hit are gone. And the videos we're going to be showing, some are in Hebrew. They're happening, and people are sending them to our folks. Michelle's getting them and sending them. So, yeah, these haven't been vetted for language or anything like that. We're going to show you a little rally held in Fort Lauderdale yesterday. Very rough language. We'll bring that up in a minute. Wait until you hear this stuff that these people are saying. these are the Nazis. I mean, these are Nazis on a corner with a Palestinian flag, stepping on the Israeli flag, screaming and yelling at Jews.
Which is what we spoke about the other day, about how, there's a war going on over there. And sometimes we say, oh, there's an ocean separating us. When all of these, the Black Lives Matter, Antifa, those that are sympathetic to or believe in the Arab cause, which is actually comes from the Quran, and kill the Jew, kill the Christian. So, but they are here in our country. So don't think that we are not going to be affected.
Laura Loomer on her website, loomered.com, has Angela Vanderplum, a very good, very good writer, prolific and consistent. She somehow got into a Zoom meeting of Black Lives, jihadis, all of this. And we'll go through her article also. Basically, the gist of this Zoom meeting that has been captured says, we will form an organic revolution online. And the writer goes on to say, Israel's on the brink of war with Islam, Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Palestinians. And now in the United States, supporters of all of those factions are forming an organic revolution online that they intend on hitting the streets with, particularly if Israel does what it normally does. It increases its kinetic punch to the enemy, whether it's in Gaza or in Judea or Samaria. So we already see the formulation of a movement in America to support the jihad movement, which will probably be occurring worldwide. But is that even a possibility? Well, let's talk to Clare Lopez, who retired after 20 years with the Central Intelligence Agency. Operations officer, served in various S-hole countries around the world, the third world countries, some more advanced. She's an expert on Russia. She's an expert on Iran, the Sunni Shia side of the ledger, and she's an expert on the Middle East. So is she with us right now? Claire, you there?
Yes, I'm here. Glad to be with you guys. Thanks
Hello.
for
Hi, Claire.
Great to see you.
Glad you're with us.
So we have put this show together, and our desire is to bring information and then action to our folks. Are you surprised that after 7 years, 2014 Operation Protective Edge, Israel's now at it again with its enemies?
No, I mean, we can't be surprised at all, but it's not even so much the passage of the time, 6-7 years since 2014, but I think very clearly it's an indication of America's enemies, which are the same as Israel's enemies, testing our new president here in the United States. The world is going to hell in a handbasket, including domestically in the United States, but certainly the Middle East, after all the progress that President Trump made over there with the Abraham Accords, the offer rejected of the deal of a century to the Palestinians. All of that has been tossed by the current administration. And before we came on today, I was just looking to see if I could find any news reports about a statement out of the White House or a statement about White House phone calls, interaction with Israeli counterparts. For example, President Biden, has he called Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu? I cannot find a single indication of any contacts like that, except going back to Sunday, now 3 days ago, when National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan apparently phoned his counterpart in Israel to tell them to, keep a lid on things, guys. So it's a testing time. They know that there's a pile of limp spaghetti at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Every rogue actor on the face of the earth knows this, from, Xi Jinping in China to Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang. to the mullahs in Iran, which, by the way, they are the ones ultimately behind what's going on in Israel, to the Iranian proxies that are hammering Israel right now, especially Hamas, PIJ, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and the Palestinian Authority, PLO, Fatah on the Judea-Samaria side. So there is weakness. I'll end with this for the moment. There's a perception of weakness in three capitals right now that is driving this violence. The weakness in Washington, D.C., a weakness of the government, the uncertainty about the government in Jerusalem, and the uncertainty of elections, no elections out of Ramallah, the Palestinian Authority, right? As I understand now, those have been postponed or canceled. But that uncertainty in those three capitals at the same time, I think that's really what brought this all together. Of course, with the confluence of Ramadan, the end of Ramadan, Jerusalem Day, and today, Eid al-Fitr, of course, the celebration of the Battle of Badr in 624.
Yeah, and for our listening audience, just tuning in at 9:14 East Coast time, if you're watching, we have a lot of people watching over in Israel, 4:14 in the afternoon. It's been a busy day, to say the least. A lot of this stuff fires up at night, but the latest reports are that the IDF is striking top Hamas command, including operatives close to one of the Hamas leaders, Mohammed Deif. So they're going after command and control. Mark, I just sent you a video from our producer, Michelle, who's getting this stuff from all over the place. And it comes with a warning. It's a little graphic, but it illustrates the precision that the IDF is using to strike these commanders. They have intelligence on the ground. They know the automobiles. They zoom in on them, whether it's with drones or however. It could be individuals in Hamas with they could be lasing it, and there's a variety of ways they can hit it. But this is one of these guys just got hit, and it's a little graphic, but not horribly. Well, it's a dead guy. It's horrible. It's sad. Any loss of life is sad. But this is what people do.
Which is really, Israel
enemies.
preserves life. And that's why they have the Iron Dome. And that's why they built these infrastructures, so that they have,
preserve life.
They can preserve life. Whereas there may be more casualties in Gaza because they don't create these safeguards for their own people. They don't have areas and shelters.
We're going to put a little meme up in a little while. Benjamin Netanyahu's picture saying, Golda Meir's famous statements about the Arabs holding weapons and the Jews holding weapons. So we'll make that point in a bit. But let's play this video. Comes with a warning. It's a little graphic. Turn away if you don't want to watch.
What's disturbing about that video then?
Well, there's a dead jihadi in there.
What's
Look,
disturbing about that video?
as this is an important moral point. As Christians, Jews, as people who believe in natural law and morality, you don't want to see war. Nobody wants to see war. You don't want to see dead people. But we're realistic enough that when there is a war, people die, and maybe even innocent people, depending on how you define innocent people die. Look at our own wars. Look at the Civil War, 600,000 Americans killing each other. Crazy stuff.
But we also know that Hamas puts the children and the women right up front. In fact, they say, please wound me, please hurt me, because then I'll get money from Hamas.
Money, yeah.
If I could jump in right at this point,
please.
to make, emphasize the point that Susie's just making right there. And that is that under international law, if one side uses civilian population to shield military and military operations, casualties in retaliation to that civilian population are legally, lawfully the responsibility and the fault of those who used human shields. That's international law. And this is what Hamas does all the time. Just as you just said, Susie, is they put their missile launch sites, their rocket launch sites in schoolyards, in hospital areas, clinics. And they do this on purpose so that when there are retaliatory strikes, every one of these rockets going up has a trajectory and leaves a smoke trail, and the Israelis, trace that right back to the source of the launch. Well, it's illegal to do that under international law if you've put that rocket launcher in a civilian structure, but they do it all the time.
And doesn't that constitute a war crime?
Yes, it is a war crime. Absolutely, it's a war crime.
Right, and all these jihadis, and this is a war crime.
Yes.
Well, it's common knowledge.
With the rockets going up, we're showing the rockets going up.
Yeah, these are right now. We're showing the Katusha and the A-120s, named after one of their dead martyrs, being fired. We'll show you pictures of that in a little bit. Being fired from Gaza now into Tel Aviv, Claire. Places we go and stay in Tel Aviv.
We've been. Yeah.
Unbelievable. And I have a hard time. Tom Trento here with Susie Gold. Our special host is our special guest is Clare Lopez. J. Mark sitting behind all the equipment, and a few producers out there sending us stuff like Michelle and Monty and others. I have a hard time when the Israeli government says, now you've crossed the red line. You're shooting into Tel Aviv. Well, we've been through the South quite a bit. We've been through the kibbutz, all the various places.
And Ashdod,
why isn't that a red line? I mean, they're human beings. They're Israelis. Why isn't that a red line when they're any attack on any citizen in Israel should be a red line. I mean, because it's a tourist section. But for whatever the reasons are, Mark, I just sent you Netanyahu's little meme. We'll put that up. We'll talk about that. And then, Claire, we're going to walk through, Carolyn Glick very well. We're going to walk through her chronology. If you want to pull it up, it was in JNS, most recent article. Washington's agenda is completely wrong and incendiary. We're going to walk through that. This is going to be a class. This is going to be a class that we are going to teach in the context of a real war with experts from Carolyn Glick's point of view, who's very close to the administration in Israel. So you have Netanyahu. I take a look at this meme, this poster. It was actually said by Golda Meir when she was prime minister, but it's being attributed to Netanyahu saying it now. You want to read that there, Susie, for the folks?
Yeah, I can't see
it. Oh, I can see it.
If the Arabs put down their weapons.
If the Arabs put down their weapons today, now think about that. If all the Arabs put down their weapons, there would be no more violence. I'm going to read it, then we're going to kind of deconstruct it. If the Jews put down their weapons today, there would be no more Israel. All right, let's look at that in the context of what we understand about the not only the Islamic mind. Can't say the Arab mind, because there's a lot of Arab Christians who are simply wonderful people. It's the jihadist mind, but not only that, Claire. Does Hezbollah and Hamas and the PA, do they have any written documents that would help us understand their view of the Jews?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but we could go straight to the Hamas covenant, which dates back to the 1980s, 87, 88, in which in the opening, few lines, it says, and I'm paraphrasing just a little bit, but the Zionist entity exists and will exist until Islam destroys it.
And
He
he
didn't
has-
say
Their
until
ultimate
Hamas
goal.
destroys it. It
Claire?
said until Islam destroys it.
Right. That's their
It's the
ultimate
national
goal.
quote is, I have it memorized, Israel will exist and continue to exist until Islam obliterates it.
Well, how about what Golda Meir said when she said that there will be peace when the Arabs love their children more than they hate the Jew and the Christian?
Yeah, I
Now-
mean, that day will never come, of course, because Jew hatred is doctrinal to Islam. It cannot be changed. It is doctrine. And why is it doctrine? Because it dates back to Muhammad himself, whose biography, the Sirah Rasulullah, can be read in English, and the Quran, of course, as well, which mandates Jew hatred. And if, as Muslims believe that the Quran is the actual literal word for word of Allah, it cannot ever be changed.
Right.
And also within the Quran, it says in multiple places that Muhammad is the Ansan al-Kamil. Ansan al-Kamil in Arabic means the perfect man. So
Mhm.
whatever he did during his lifetime, at least as recounted as we know it in the Sirah, is to be emulated for all time by all Muslims everywhere. And that means Jew hatred. They
I
cannot change it.
gotta jump in here, Claire. You personally, you through the United West, through, I think, Center for Security Policy, all of us here, we have been for probably 10, 15 years now, condemned by various Southern Poverty Law Center type groups for holding the positions that you just articulated. Is this a case of killing the messenger as opposed to a dispassionate analysis of the doctrine of Islam?
Well, look at what Sharia, what Islamic law actually says about the crime they call slander. And that crime, as articulated in Islamic law, says that slander, possibly a capital punishment crime under Sharia, is anything that a Muslim would dislike. That is what it says in Islamic law. There is no defense of truth, as in American law, for example. Truth is not a defense. Slander in Islamic law is anything that a Muslim would dislike, and it can be a capital punishment crime.
And some years ago, I think it was 2010, through Frank Gaffney's Center for Security Policy, when Claire worked for him at that point, a book was initiated, Sharia, the Threat to America, and 19 authors came together. I was honored to be one of them. Claire was one of the authors and the editor for this, and it lays out what we're talking about 11 years ago, but the Islamic doctrine doesn't change. But Claire, here's the argument. And we're seeing this argument countering people like us who critique Islamic doctrine. I am very careful when I speak to say I don't hate Muslims by any means. A Muslim's a human being. I'm a Christian. I love human beings. I am critiquing a deadly and dangerous system called Islam. Don't get mad at me if I read quotes from the Shia or Sunni side about what they believe. But then the knee-jerk reaction, Claire, and right now, folks, we're laying out the groundwork for why this war exists and whether or not there could ever be a solution. The knee-jerk reaction, Claire, is, oh, that's a handful of extremists who are twisting the Quran and not seeing that it's truly a loving document. How do you, former agency official, answer something like that?
Well, there's this little book for starters, which is my copy of the Quran, and again, believed doctrinally by Muslims to be the literal word of Allah, conveyed directly word for word to Muhammad is what they believe. And it cannot be changed. It cannot be
But
changed.
not
in
everybody
custom.
follows that, Claire. Not all the Muslims follow that. They don't.
No,
believe-
they don't. And that's the good thing. I mean, that's the good part. If there is any silver lining in all of this, and that is that there are many who simply don't obey. They're not faithful. They're not devout or practicing the doctrine of their faith. And as far as that goes, we're perfectly happy with that situation. We would not be so happy were Christians or Jews not to be devout and faithful and practicing of their faiths, because why? Because the faiths are very different. But it's not about the people, as you said, Tom. It's about the doctrine. It's about what's in here and what's in here. This is a book of law. It is called The Reliance of the Traveler, or the Umdat al-Salik. And this is law. And it is prefaced with the imprimatur, if you will, of Islamic authorities all over the Islamic world, to include Al-Azhar, the seat of Sunni learning for 1,000 years in Egypt. And we quote from the book that is in front of us. What else can we do? But no, every Muslim does not follow this. It's between them and, their conscience, what they follow, what they obey, what they disobey, how observant they are. That's between them and their conscience, not for us to say.
All right, Tom Trento here with our special guest, Clare Lopez, and my co-host, Susie Gold, J. Mark behind the wheels over here running things, and Monty Cristo helping us out as a grip and producer with Michelle helping. It's 9:30 in the morning, East Coast time. Tell your friends to join us. We're going to be continuing this, and they can go to TheUnitedWest.org. If you can get through, big tech is trying to block us. There's nothing wrong with our website. They'll throw up some very scary screen that says if you continue, your data will be stolen. None of that is true. They usually have a little bypass. If you want to continue at your own risk, go ahead. You can go ahead. It's okay. Or go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/TheUnitedWest. Tell your friends to join in, because we're going to be dealing with the academic information that's the foundation as to why this war is taking place in Israel. But we want to show you a little video right now.
It's a sad video.
It's apparently a jihadi got killed, and his friends, they have like Jewish people, 24 hours, you got to bury people. So we're going to see the funeral procession in process, and it's being taped by I think a Jewish family from high up in an apartment. And then all of a sudden you hear the sirens that the Israelis are coming or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. They leave the body on the ground. And well, you'll see. Check this out.
Those sirens have a magical effect on bodies, man. It's like Jesus. Man.
That was a Jesus effect.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
It was the Jesus effect by the sirens.
But we know that the photographers are there on that side, on the Gaza side, and they look for these things. It's staged.
It's totally staged.
They're staged.
They call it Pollywood.
Yeah, Pollywood.
Yeah, like the Indian movies. What are they called?
Bollywood.
Bollywood.
Yeah.
Bollywood. Instead of Hollywood, Pollywood are the Palestinians staging these things, or actually, as we spoke about earlier, putting the babies in front and the babies get killed, and then CNN goes crazy, and that's what's going to happen here.
Yeah.
This thing will
And
end.
that's what dictates then how people respond, how the country responds, how people understand what's going on there is coming from illegitimate sources. So
Moment of silence. We're live right now, 9:33 in the morning. Just got breaking news. Moment of silence, Claire, please. Liz Cheney ousted from role as House GOP conference chair. Moment of silence.
So sad.
Yes, folks, we're right-wing fanatics here running the show here. We're convinced that the Constitution and the Judeo-Christian framework to life makes the most sense, and we argue for that quite effectively. You know who else argues for it? Carolyn Glick. We're gonna walk through this, and it's so well written. It's a chronology of how the mess started in Israel. We just laid out for the listening audience the philosophical, theological framework for Islam, the Islamic system, and the incipient Jew hatred that's in there, and the totalitarian aspect. Claire, take a second on the totalitarian supremacist aspect of Islam from a theological perspective, so people understand the Islamic mind, why there's a supremacist component to it.
Right. So, Christianity is a missionary faith, seeks to bring others into the faith through dialogue, through preaching, teaching, works of charity, that sort of thing. Islam intends to bring others into its faith belief system by force, by sheer force, brutality, terror, and to keep them there, once having taken what's called the Shahada, the pledge of allegiance to Islam, basically to Allah and to Muhammad, keep them there by threat of death. Threat of death if anyone were to apostatize or to leave Islam. And that brings to mind, if Islam is a system, a political system, for which leaving it is a crime that brings capital punishment, well, then becoming a Muslim is not really an act of faith either. It's a political act of allegiance to a totalitarian, brutal system. And so the objective of Islam, stated in all of the doctrine and by the scholars of Islam through the centuries, is to dominate, to conquer, not through good works and clinics and orphanages, and the construction and preaching in churches and so forth, no, but through conquest. And maybe this is the place to bring in the concept of sacred space. That is, any land.
Get the maps ready, Mark.
Any land.
We're going to put some maps up for you too.
Okay. Any land ever conquered or occupied by Islam from whenever, centuries ago, is forever considered waqf. W-A-Q-F, waqf, meaning land endowed to Islam, to Muslims in perpetuity by Allah, by virtue of having once been conquered or occupied. So we look at the Levant, which is the entire southeastern littoral, if you will, the map, we'll go up there in a minute, the littoral, southeast littoral of the Mediterranean Sea, right? From Turkey on down, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Gaza to Egypt. That's all the Levant, and inland all the way to Mesopotamia. That's called the Levant. In Arabic, it would be called Al-Sham. And the words derive from the same roots in each language respectively, meaning the east or the rising of the sun, right? In any case, though, all of that was conquered by the armies of Islam. Jerusalem fell to the Islamic armies in, what was it, 636, I think. Even though later on in modern times, the Jewish people were able to reestablish their nation state in their ancestral homelands in the modern day state of Israel, you'll see here on the map, that land in Islamic doctrine, just as the Iberian Peninsula, Al-Andalus,
Saudi Arabia.
or the subcontinent of Asia, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and so forth, once conquered by Islam, must be fought for forever and always by the armies of Islam. And that's not preaching, teaching churches. This is fighting. This is offensive armies, rockets and missiles that we're seeing right now, to get that land back for Islam. That is doctrine. It is the doctrine of sacred space, and they are not allowed by the doctrine of the faith to let that go. That is what's going on in Israel.
That's a very important point, folks. Tom Trento here with Susie Gold, Clare Lopez, laying out the theological and political, geopolitical mandate for Islam. Now we'll throw that one map up. And this is the area you were describing.
Which map?
Where the one with the Saudi Arabia is the large country with the others all around. The Levant, the whole Levant area. And this is the area that had been won by Islam through the centuries, and then some of it lost. But there's the map right there, Claire.
Mm-hmm.
Could somebody find Israel on that map?
Where is that? You need a magnifying glass.
There's Israel right there, if you can look. And Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez say Israel is occupying Muslim land. You're looking at all of that is Muslim land.
Can I ask you a question, and Claire also?
Yeah.
There's all these neighboring, all of those countries surrounding Israel. They're all enemies. They're all Arabs, or, some that maybe through the Abraham Accords, they said that they forged some type of
historic enemies of Israel.
Is that the reason, that little dot, the reason why there's no peace in the Middle East?
That's why there's no peace in the Middle East.
Yeah, because
the 7 million Jews are on, dirt the size of New Jersey.
7 million Jews.
Yeah, because it's Waqf. Because it's Waqf. They cannot let it go. Let me throw you in a real fun fact real quick here. Do you know where the term the squad comes from? Speaking of Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, etc. You know where that comes from?
Tell us.
It comes straight out of Mao's Little Red Book. I kid you not. I just happen to have a copy right here.
There are no coincidences here.
And it's a very short part, but in
I counter your Little Red Book with our Little Red Book.
Well, these of course are the sayings of Chairman Mao, right?
This is what
and it says here, listen to this. The secretary of a party committee must be good at being a squad leader. A party committee has 10 to 20 members. It is like a squad in the army. And the secretary is like the squad leader. Little Red Book. Anyway, there's one more aspect to this that maybe we should put in at this point. And that is the concept of dhimmitude. In the Quran, it is written that the Ahl Dhimma, the Dhimmi people, meaning those primarily Christians and Jews conquered by Islam, are forever held in a status of second, third, whatever, fourth class citizenship, if that, but must abide by a whole set of stringent regulations. And because the Jewish people of the Levant were conquered at one time by the armies of Muhammad, of Islam, they were considered to be dhimmi people, Ahl Dhimma. It's in the Quran. And the fact that they have now reasserted themselves and reestablished their nation on the land of their ancient homeland, and they are powerful, and they are good, and they are successful, and they have survived against numerous onslaughts by enemy armies. This is an affront beyond all affronts to the concept of dhimmitude, and they must be returned to the status of dhimmis as soon as possible, according to Islamic doctrine.
Yeah. All right. We got a lot going on here, folks. Tom Trento, your host, 9:43 in the morning, East Coast time, 4:43 in Israel, where very interesting events are developing. Susie Gold's going to bring us an update in a moment. Clare Lopez, Lopez Liberty. Clare, how can people get in touch with you if they want you to speak or to write or counsel or advise?
Right. Well, I'll give you my the email that I use. It is Clare, CLARE, at TheUnitedWest.org. Clare at TheUnitedWest.org.
Very simple. And what we did yesterday, folks, to broaden out the purpose for this show, yesterday was day 2 of the war. Today's day 3. Will there be a day 4? Susie's going to let us know in a moment. We hope not, but we will be here day 4 through whenever. We're going to be here 9 o'clock every morning. The show's going to go until we decide to stop it. It could be an hour, 2 hours, and then we may pick one up in the afternoon, 2, 3 o'clock, which will be 9, 10, 11 o'clock in Israel. And the Hamas seems to like to fire these missiles off in the evening also. Harder for the Israelis to see them supposedly, but not really from the Israeli point of view. Yesterday, we had on Mort Klein, the president of Zionist Organization of America, and he gave his perspective as to what's going on. And he gave an admonition to all Americans, including American Jews, to get with it, understand what's going on, know the facts, and stand against the Biden administration. We're going to get into that in our show. We also had on Dr. Ronnie Wexler, who is a theologian, studied Christian theology, Jewish theology, started a tour organization to bring thousands of people to Israel to let them see the Holy Land. And we go in the context of his trips. He also fought in the 67 war, the 73 war, Yom Kippur, the 6-Day War. And we had on Barry Shaw, Middle East expert, Israeli strategic studies. Today, we were going to have Mai Golan, who's a member of the Knesset, an MK, in the Likud party, and with Netanyahu. Just before the show, she said, Tom, and we're friends with her. I've had her in this studio right where we are right now, interviewing her. She is swamped with what's going on. Netanyahu has his team together trying to figure out exactly what to do. Today, we decided to give the academic, educational context for what's going on. So you just don't go, oh, them stupid Jews in Israel, they're fighting the stupid Muslims. This happens all the time.
The Jews are fighting the Muslims, not like they attacked first.
Yeah, the New York Times 2 days ago said militants defending assault by IDF on the Temple Mount, right? I mean, that's how
very
crazy.
slanted.
So we're going to give the facts, the truth. Go check it out if you should. Check out everything we say. But give us an update. Then we're going to go into Carolyn's article and walk through the chronology. And we've just established the large context for understanding as we drill down what's going on in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Gaza right now.
Yeah, so we have a whole team that are monitoring this situation from multiple sources. And I just saw that Hamas has appealed to the international community for mediation for a ceasefire. But mind you, at the same time, they're saying that they are threatening to fire additional rockets, which is barrage of rockets that they're anticipating in other areas in Tel Aviv that were not hit before. And there's also a threat to Haifa, which is actually north of Tel Aviv. So I remember years ago, and when we were in Israel, as we have our annual trips, there was always the threat that they would be able to launch their missiles even further into central Israel or northern Israel. And now we see that that has occurred. So at the same time that they are threatening, And that they're saying at 6 o'clock there will be a barrage of missiles in new areas.
Barrage.
A barrage. Barrage.
I understood
of
New York.
missiles.
You don't understand New York speak? And the water and the barrage.
They're going to bomb the heck out. They are planning, and they're telling Israel that they're going to launch these missiles in new areas. And Israel has retaliated, rightfully so, as 1,000 missiles have already hit Israel. And they are targeting commanders, because they know if they do launch into Gaza, more people will die, because Israel they have secure areas. They are the ones that have shelters, because they preserve life and they make sure that people are downstairs and away from all of these missiles. Whereas in Gaza, they don't care about the lives of their people, and they don't create anything that to help. They want the deaths. Actually, it looks great in the media.
It plays well.
And now we have Hamas, who is appealing to the international community to mediate.
All right, this is the typical 7-year itch where the Hamas initiates these attacks, and we're going to see how they actually initiate a variety of ways. And they tried to get some punches in, and they did. There were some analysts last night on I-24 that said, if this were a prize fight, Hamas is winning right now. They hit Tel Aviv. They hit, and now they want to get out.
No, there's going to be ceasefire.
I illustrated someone last night. There's a bully next door, and there's a family of professional boxers. Well, while the boxers are sleeping, the bully comes over, punches them all in the face, runs back, calls the police when the prize fighters wake up to go after him, calls the police and says, "Hey, they're coming after me." And the police say, "Hey, you guys, you're too strong. Yeah, he's a bully, but you're too strong for him. We'll arrest him. We'll slap him on the wrist." And that's what Hamas does. They get slapped on the wrist by the world community.
Right.
They raise money from the Emirates.
This is a fundraising campaign. For
Iran,
them.
and now they are the keepers of the Islam in Israel. But some thinking in Israel right now is, we're not doing that game this time. We're going to destroy the command control, the infrastructure, demilitarize. Will that happen?
And it's important to
know.
note that Israel does not intentionally fire at civilian areas. We know that Hamas puts, and we saw it when we were in Israel, they place the children and the women, and they have this whole area that looks like huts of, this is where the poor Gazans live. Oh, poor them. When meanwhile, and you can research this, behind the area that we see on TV are 5-star hotels, are malls that are high-end, classy malls, and there are palatial estates back there. And that's where the money goes from all the fundraising campaigns. It makes them rich, and they put those people on the Gazan border for the photographers to take pictures of them and to show, oh, look what the Israelis have done. They put us here. We have nothing. And this is all, it's all a campaign for the cameras.
It's all for the cameras. All right, let's go into the chronology, and we're going to comment on it. Now, this is good stuff, folks. If you want to understand in depth what's going on, why in depth? Well, the solutions can come when you have a proper in-depth understanding. But whether or not there could be solutions to this, maybe they're temporary solutions. Maybe they're not eternal solutions. So, we're reading from Carolyn Glick's article, "Washington's agenda is completely wrong." What does Washington have to do with this, Claire?
Well, as I mentioned at the outset of the program today, all of this busted loose after the new administration took office in January this year, 2021. There is a perception, and it is dangerous beyond belief to permit a perception like this to exist. But the perception is that the new leadership in Washington, D.C. is weak, that it does not have Israel's back, that it is trying to play nice, not just with the PLO, the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah, but with their masters in Tehran. and that they are trying desperately, the Biden team is trying desperately to beg the mullahs to please, please, please let us come back into the disastrous nuclear deal of July 2015, the JCPOA, Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. So that perception is out there that that this team now in Washington, D.C. is weak, groveling on its knees, and will not stand with its allies. Number one ally in the region of the Middle East, of course, Israel. That's what is behind all of this.
Mhm.
All right. What was that? All right.
We were looking at, we were going to review
Yeah, we're going to go
Carolyn
through
Glick's
Carolyn Glick's.
article.
All right, here we go. Carolyn Glick says U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan needs to get his facts right and his priorities straight. So that's what's on the screen right there, right?
Mhm.
Okay. This was published yesterday by Carolyn Glick, and she says, throughout the month of Ramadan. That's always, I mean, we have done on our show on Jumpin' Juma Freaky Friday,
Mhm.
we've done the Ramathon Bombathon,
Mhm.
where websites from around the world evaluate the number of killings and bombings that occurred during Ramadan, a holy month. But we've laid the groundwork that Western holiness is not in simpatico with Islamic holiness.
Mhm.
There's a militant, a kinetic end to Islam, and holiness is saving the world for Islam by the sword or whatever.
Mhm.
So throughout the month of Ramadan, the Fatah-controlled Palestinian Authority and Hamas have been inciting Arab Israelis in Jerusalem and throughout the country to attack Jews.
Mhm.
We gotta explain what's going on there. That sentence is chock full of important information. Holy month of Ramadan. Claire, give us 30 seconds on what the holy month of Ramadan is all about.
Sure. So it's holy for Muslims, not for anybody else. But Ramadan is the month every year, which is commemorated with fasting. Well, they skip lunch anyway, but fasting and prayers, and there are usually fundraising drives that go along with it too. But it is a monthly, an annual occurrence. It is one of the 5 pillars of Islam to be commemorated by Muslims. There are, as I said, extra visits to mosques and Islamic centers and prayers that go along with it. But as well, it is a month of jihad. It is a special month when Muslims devote resources and time and effort, especially to jihad attacks. And I don't mean, going to the gym 3 times a week or an internal struggle. I mean jihad of the sword. And this is part and parcel of Ramadan, always has been. And so we always see during the month of Ramadan an uptick in offensive attacks, jihad attacks, killing, slaughter, unfortunately.
Yeah, and the last days of Ramadan are the days where the belief is that the Quran was given to Muhammad. So there's symbolic reasons for the celebration.
Right, which
Jews
is
have it.
actually
You have your whole season of like
mhm.
not a month, I think 10 months. You
I
guys have
think
10
it's
months
closer
of
to 12 months.
12 months of holidays.
But today, is it today, Claire, or yesterday was the last day of Ramadan?
Today is the last day, the Eid al-Fitr, the celebration of the Battle of Badr in 624, 2 years after the Hijrah of 622, movement of Muslims from Mecca to Medina. Battle of Badr is the first time, at least commemorated that we know of historically, that armies of Muhammad of Islam confronted and defeated an infidel, as they would say, army on the field of battle. So it puts the capstone on the month as a month of battle, of conquest and domination by Islam.
Mhm.
Yeah, Mark, you got something?
Yeah, we keep talking like it's over there, like these ideas are over there.
Over there somewhere,
The
yeah.
apostasy idea, kill because of Islam, is over there. And the concept of one of the main concepts is dollar harb and dollar Islam. that it's House of War, House of Islam. I found an undercover video that really explains this years ago. Undercover teaching by a professor of Islam in the United States schools here in America on the concepts like you're talking about. I'd like to play that video and have you comment on it, Claire.
Okay.
But before you do that, it's almost the top of the hour, almost 10 o'clock on the East Coast.
Right.
10, 11, 12,
I
5
have an
o'clock.
update here.
Oh, we got an
Israel
update.
kills senior Hamas commanders in joint IDF
Say it
ISA
again.
operation.
Say it again.
Oh, now I lost it. It went to it's a ticker, you know, on the bottom. But there was just a high official that Israel did target and did assassinate.
Do we know who it was?
Gaza.
Do we know the name?
Yeah, wait until it comes up and
We'll
then I'll
pick it up.
interrupt you.
We'll-
Yeah.
We'll
But
pick it
This
up.
concept is playing out right now, right today, right here in Israel.
How long is the video?
2 or 3 minutes.
All right, here we go.
In Islam under the Sharia, the world is broken up into two parts. Dar al-Islam, that's any land under the Sharia, and Dar al-Harb. And Dar al-Harb is everywhere else on the world, the House of War. So here in the United States, we're in the House of War. And that is why Islamic scholars, you will hear them refer to Islam as a religion of peace, because once they've conquered the whole world and the entire world is under Sharia, then there will be peace, according to Muslims.
In its preliminary form. And the global political order, sir, is included in the legal order in Islam.
Here we got it.
Now, the second point is that discussions revolve around the division of the world into Darul Islam and Darul Harb. Okay? These concepts are based on the Sunnah. So these are based, the Darul Harb is based on the Sunnah. The main idea is that if your physical control is confined to a particular area,
Michelle has the name.
you cannot have any kind of internationalism. If you are just focusing on one or so, because the Islamic State cannot grant rights to individuals who are outside this area, nor can such rights be enforced. Islam must have, like the United Nations, Islam must have total dominance, just as the United States wants to control the world. Okay?
Want to read those?
In other words,
Oh, those, yes.
the United Nations must be Islamized.
Islamized.
Okay? Now there are three approaches to the issue of DAS. In my view, people may disagree. Three approaches.
This is the professor teaching this stuff at Islamic University, who is professor at Harvard, who's professor in Michigan.
According to the Hanafi,
We're having a book on this stuff.
it is divided into two DAS, the Darul Islam and the Darul Harb. According to Imam Shafi, there is a single DAS, which means the whole world.
Thank you, sir.
What happened?
So there are two positions. What are these two positions? The Shafi method,
Audio's
where
behind.
there is a single DAS,
Front of
the
the-
whole world is one.
All right, let's close it.
There are no DAS, according to Imam Shafi. There is a single DAS. Now listen to this important carefully. And it extends to the whole world.
What house of
The Islamic State, Mustaq Sahab, is in a state of perpetual war.
In theory.
Theory, you know, everything is theory. Even United Nations is theory. In a state of perpetual war till complete domination.
They think about this is being taught at Islamic at the most highest levels. There's only one world. It's all Islam. Everybody must fall under the control of Islam. It's not just Israel they're going after the whole world. but they're teaching this. This is not some theory in a book, read it in a book thing. This is what they're teaching to the professors today.
Yeah, this was a very high level meeting of scholars laying out these doctrines, and
in the United States.
The audio was a little bit ahead of the video, but you saw the subtitles there. I remember when this came out a few years back when we found it. It was devastating. It's what it is. We know what it is.
This is taught not just at the higher levels of university academia. This is taught to children in American madrasas, American Islamic schools, from the earliest grades. It's in the textbooks. You can buy the textbooks on Amazon. I have. You can read them from the earliest grades. One other real quick note, because this has to do directly with what's going on in Israel right now, and that is the Iranian Constitution. I don't know how many folks know, it's in English and it's online. And according to the Iranian Constitution itself, that document commits the Iranian regime since the revolution of 1979, this is, to jihad to conquer the entire world for Islam. It's in the Constitution. They call the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, the Pasdaran, they call it in the Constitution an ideological army dedicated to jihad in the way of Allah, fi sabilillah. And they actually quote in the Constitution, verse 860 of the Quran, which says, make ready your forces to the utmost of your power, including steeds of war, to strike terror into the hearts of the enemy. That's in the Iranian Constitution, and I guess they follow their Constitution.
Yeah, they follow their Constitution. Good point.
Yeah.
The video you just saw, the undercover video in this high level teaching, as Claire said, it's being taught in the US, but it's also being taught as the curricula in Israel, in Judea, Samaria schools, and in Gaza. And one of the big arguments that conservative pro-Israel people have had is stop funding the PA because you're simply funding the propagation of Jew hatred.
Right.
And Trump cut the money out. The money out, the Taylor Force law, cut the money out for pay to slay, all of that. The money's going back now, which everyone yesterday on our show was yelling about. But Carolyn, back to her, says, referring back to this high-level meeting, throughout the month, Ramadan, Fatah-controlled Palestinian Authority in Judea, Samaria, and Hamas in Gaza have been inciting Arab Israelis in Jerusalem. How do they do that? By this sort of stuff. We're constantly at war with these Jewish people. So it happened at the outset of the month, 30 days ago, today's the end, Claire, Jews in Jerusalem, Jaffa and beyond, found themselves, and if you have TikTok on your iPhone, you could
don't touch it. If it's TikTok, don't touch it.
I know, but if you have it, you could have watched Jews in Jerusalem, Jaffa and beyond being beat up by gangs of Arab thugs on the street and posted these things to TikTok, and they went viral around the Arab world. 2 or 3 Arab guys would go to a Hasidic Jew with the curls and the dress, and just walk up to him, punch him in the head, kick him a few times, laugh in front of the camera, boom, 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 viral all over the place. What do? The Jew said, "Come on, you got to stop this," and a lot of places where it was done was not under, cops weren't around there, so the Jews do what the Jews do. They organize themselves to protect themselves. And now fights started, initiated by Arabs at the beginning of Ramadan. Last week, Hamas leaders announced their detailed plans to open a new campaign against Israel on May 9th. Did anybody know this? May 9th was
I didn't know that.
May 9th was a conflation of 3 events, reading from Carolyn Glick. Jerusalem Day, we've all been there for Jerusalem Day, which is what? What's Jerusalem Day? The celebration of what?
It's the celebration of the unification of Jerusalem. And it's, really, it's a magnificent, everybody's in the streets, they're happy, they're dancing, and it's all throughout Jerusalem. It's such a glorious time to celebrate.
All right, so Jerusalem Day is taking place, number one. Number two, then the holiest day of Muslims of the month of Ramadan, and then Iran's own Jerusalem Day. Did you know Iran had a Jerusalem Day?
No.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Al-Quds Day. They call it Al-Quds Day.
Al-Quds.
Is for the recognition and the desire to destroy Israel and end Jewish rule in Jerusalem.
That's why they've got a Quds force subordinate to the IRGC.
Quds is Jerusalem. So Iran.
And that's what Obama used to call Jerusalem.
Al-Quds. Right.
Yeah.
And so did your leader, Brennan, John Brennan, right? He called it Al-Quds.
Muslims would say that, yes.
Yeah.
Muslims would say that.
Yeah.
John Brennan, former head of the agency, Clare wasn't there when he was there. But in 2013, John Guandola, a friend of ours, through contact with people close to Brennan, announced on our radio show that Brennan had made the Shahada to Islam in his office. He served as chief of station in Saudi Arabia for many years. So these three things: Israel's Jerusalem Day, regaining control of Jerusalem after 2,000 years, 1967. Then the Ramadan, and then Iran. So Hamas leaders put everything on the table. Events progressed precisely according to the plans the terror bosses set out in their public announcements. The combination of Arab violence in Sheik Jarrah at the Damascus Gate and the Temple Mount, along with balloon bombs, rocket launches against Israel from Gaza, arson and terrorist attacks in Judea and Samaria, are precisely what Hamas leaders said would transpire. Now, the neighborhood dispute, I don't know if you're familiar with that, Claire, that was going on.
Yeah, Sheik Jarrah. Sheik Jarrah is a neighborhood in East Jerusalem where around, I think the number is 26, Arab families are living in housing that belongs to Jewish families. The Jewish families have the deeds, they have the documentation to prove ownership going back to before the War of Independence, 1948-49 in Israel, when that neighborhood was overrun and seized by Jordanian forces. The Jews fled, the Jordanians took over and settled Arab families into the Jews' homes. But once Jerusalem was reunited again, the Jews stepped forward with their deeds of trust to the homes, and in multiple court decisions ever since then, decades this has been literally, the courts have ruled that the homes belong to the Jewish families. They have the papers, they have the documentation. An agreement was reached by which the Arab families were supposed to pay rent if they were to stay there, kind of like a compromise, but they didn't pay rent. They're not paying anything. They're squatting. They're squatters. They're in the homes illegally. And so what has come up before the court yet again, just during Ramadan, this was the last month or so, was another court decision expected that would rule to forcibly evict those families. And that's the brouhaha. Long story short, the court decision was postponed to calm things down, hopefully, which they didn't. But that situation remains unsettled at the moment.
And Claire, we can't evict people during COVID times from their homes. I mean, what type of cruel person are you? I mean, they can't afford to pay rent right now.
And this has been going on for 50 years.
It's only been,
yes, this isn't just over the past few days.
Look, Carolyn Glick's, it's 10:12 in the morning, East Coast time. And we have no time limit on the show. We'll go to about 10:30 today because I want to get her article out. because it exposes Jake Sullivan of the Biden administration and his pro-Palestinian
Yes.
position. It's very, very clear. We want to get that out. So for those of you listening, watching, and for those watching the replay, if you got stuff to do, put a device over here, work on your computer, whatever, listen to what's going on, because you're going to go, I got to know that, I got to understand that. So we're laying out information very, very critical to people serious about understanding what's going on. But first, can you, Michelle sent us a list of the leaders that have gotten whacked here.
So
Can you go through
there's
that?
quite a few. There were 10 Hamas engineers that were killed. Hamas commander Walid Smali in charge of acquiring and managing rocket production equipment. You got military intelligence commanders. We have Mohammed Daif's best friend, the head of cyber networks. We also have, these are all the deaths on the Hamas commanders, which really shows that specific targeting, Israel is targeting commanders. They're not going after civilians as Hamas is going after civilians. But another death was the Hamas commander, second in rocket production, has been killed. Another one who runs rocket production projects, and another who's a senior commander of Hamas in Gaza City. And then there was some more that some others that Michelle had sent. In addition, was there another 3 leaders within the past hour?
Well, and the question is, how does Israel know where these people are? Well, they have it's very interesting. The diaspora of 70 AD, where the Romans came in and threw the Jews out. Providentially, you look at that and you go, that's the end of this group of people, a race, whatever you want to call them. They're going into all these countries all over the place. Well, because of maintaining integrity to the traditions of Judaism and the teachings, there was a consistency worldwide wherever Jews went into any country. Then in the Reconstitution, 1948 of Israel, people coming back to where they originated, they came back as Germans, as Spaniards, as Russians, as Asians, they lived everywhere. So they had for years, for centuries sometimes, an infrastructure of activity in foreign countries. What better intelligence network could you want than to live in a country for 200 years and know everything about it? So the Jews have a tremendous intelligence network worldwide because many of them have been integrated into those cultures but maintained their Judaism. And now in Gaza, it's the same thing. A lot of the Gazans probably are working with Israelis and say, that's the guy over there. Right now, he's on the corner of First and Main Street. Oh, he's traveling left, and boom, he dies. So it's very interesting. But Carolyn says, back to her, because of Sheik Jarrah, the neighborhood dispute, the Damascus Gate, Temple Mount, all of this, Fatah has been initiating the violence. It went on for a month, and the elections were stopped. Mahmoud Abbas was supposed to have a free election as to who the Palestinian leader was going to be. He saw he was going to lose, so he shut that down.
He's assumed power for 15 years.
For 1 month, the Israelis have been at low grade. You can call it low grade if you want, getting beat up and fires and all of this. Low grade intensity. And Jake Sullivan comes out. Jake Sullivan is, you know anything about him, Claire?
National Security Advisor to President Biden, longtime official previously in the Obama administration as well.
Hardcore Hillary supporter, hardcore. So you know where this is coming from. He comes out and he starts to read, according to Carolyn Glick, he reads the Riot Act to Israel. According to the readout of the conversation that the U.S. National Security Council spokesperson posted, Jake Sullivan. Among other things, Sullivan reiterated the United States' serious concerns about the potential evictions of Palestinian families from their homes in Sheik Jarrah neighborhood, as if the issue didn't revolve around illegal squatters for 50 years, says Carolyn. If that weren't enough, Carolyn continues, Sullivan encouraged the Israeli government to pursue appropriate measures to ensure calm during Jerusalem Day commemorations. Now, the Jews have been under attack for 30 days. They want to celebrate their annual celebration. The Biden administration is saying, don't do it. They're
Right.
basically in code
Right.
saying, don't do it. And I guarantee you, in their offline conversations, they were telling them, don't do it,
Right.
don't do it.
Right.
As Israel's Hayom reports, Ben Shabbat, one of the Israeli leaders, didn't take Sullivan's hostile dressing down in silence. So the Israelis respond to Biden's top national security advisor. He says, as the sovereign, Israel is handling the events responsibly and in a measured way, despite the Arab provocations. International intervention serves as a prize to the rioters. Claire, interpret this in politic speak. International intervention serves as a prize to the rioters and their dispatchers that hope that the international pressure will be exerted against Israel. What the heck does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, what it means is that on the international level, let's say at the United Nations level, and other senior diplomatic levels, Europe, for example, European Union, the attackers, the rioters, the terrorists, the Hamas, Fatah, etc., they can count on the support of those international bodies and representatives, no matter what they do, because Israel is always at fault. No matter what happens, no matter who initiates the offensive, in this case, of course, Hamas and Fatah and etc. did, it doesn't matter. The Jews are always going to be at fault. And they can count on that because the international media and leadership of international organizations, their sympathies are with Islam and the terrorists, not Israel.
Now here's the money shot for this article with Carolyn. She says less than 24 hours after the call from Biden's administration, less than 24 hours after Biden puts pressure on Israel to stop the celebrations and all of that, Hamas proved Ben Shabbat, the leader, one of the leaders in Israel, right. With a tailwind from the White House. Hamas gives Israel an ultimatum. And it was so nonsensical that they had to be laughing when they said this. Hamas told Israel, move your security forces from the Temple Mount and Sheik Jarrah by 6 p.m. They gave them a deadline, by 6 p.m., or you'll regret it. In other words, give up your sovereignty over Jerusalem by 6 or else. Lo and behold, shortly after 6 p.m., this was Monday night, 3 days ago, air raid sirens sounded throughout Jerusalem as Hamas attacked the capital with rockets from Gaza. And she goes on to say, with a commitment from countries like the United States, basically who needs friends, and this thing can go into a regional war. How, Claire, does this battle in Israel go to a regional war?
Well, I mean, of course, we all hope that it will not. At the current time, you've got Israel under attack from at least two sides, from the south, the west, Gaza, Hamas, and then also out of Judea and Samaria as well. Everyone is hoping that it can be contained and quickly with the least loss of life possible. The fear, of course, is that it could expand to bring in Hezbollah, for example. Obviously, Hezbollah, Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad are all supported by the Iranian regime in Tehran, which is really, as I've said before, they're the ones who are, directing all of this. And so it's just hope that it will not expand any further than it already has.
Mark, yeah, that's a mess.
Claire, I got a question for you. We know that the same type of the same type of anti-Semitism, Semitic sentiment that Hitler had is the same one that's being promoted today out of the Quran, out of Islam. Is it, would you say that did Hitler learn this from Muhammad, or did he come up with it on his own? Where does this anti-Semitism and that they must be destroyed, must be exterminated attitude come from? That's what I'd like to know.
Anti-Semitism really goes back all the way to the Old Testament, if you want to think about it. It goes back to the time of the Egyptian captivity. It goes back to the Amalekites. It goes back to all of, the Canaanites, the enemies of the Israelites, as they made their way out of Egypt to the Promised Land. It goes all the way back. It has been centuries. And then, of course, after Jews had been defeated in different ways, the Babylonians, the Romans, etc., and, went scattered in a diaspora across the entire world, really. Wherever they went, they were perceived as the other, as outsiders. And to the extent that they kept their traditions, their faith, their devotion to Judaism with distinctive practices and clothing and celebrations and so forth, they were perceived as outsiders. And all of this fed anti-Semitism through the ages, but it is still with us. It is the oldest hatred, I think, on the face of the earth, anti-Semitism. And it's certainly
from the beginning of time.
But when I grew up, it wasn't there, Claire. I mean, in the 80s and 90s, there wasn't that big anti-Semitism there when I grew up.
Oh, yeah, there was. There absolutely was. Yeah.
As much as it is today. It just seems like it's more. Is it because more of the rise of Islam is pushing it? What is?
Well, I mean, I would certainly say that the Israeli establishment of their modern day nation state in the ancient homeland in 1948-49, the War of Independence, certainly that was a catalyst for more anti-Semitism, because now there's an entity, a powerful, successful entity geographically located, in the Middle East, against which to direct anti-Semitism. But it's all over. I mean, look at the attacks against Jews in New York City, attacks against Jews all over the United States, Europe, France, etc. It's not just there, and it's not just now. It has been.
The internet has exposed it and taken this festering sore and brought it all over the place. All right, we're gonna start winding down in a second.
We're gonna
let me lay out what we're gonna be doing here.
You have the flag video.
We're gonna close with two videos. The flag video, that one last. But Michelle, we need the Fort Lauderdale video. Michelle, we need the Fort Lauderdale video with the anti-Jewish protesters. We want to play that one before we play the last one. And let me read a statement from, you remember Baghdad Bob back during the Iraq War, when the Americans are nowhere, we have crushed them. The turret is through the guy's window. We have crushed them, we have killed them. I think Jen Psaki or Sak Jenny, whatever, however you say it, Jen Psaki. I think she's the new Baghdad Bob, because you see the National Security Advisor scolding and calling on the carpet Israel. Then she comes out and says yesterday, the president's support for Israeli security, for its legitimate right to defend itself and people, is fundamental and will never waver. Keep those Jewish donations coming in. We condemn ongoing rocket attacks by Hamas and other terrorist groups, including against Jerusalem. How do you think, Susie Gold, Trump would have handled this? What would he have said?
Yeah, well, Trump never.
What would he have said if right now this was happening and he gave him the mic? What are your thoughts on it?
He would say, Israel, you do everything in your power, and you get back and make sure that you create calm in the region. And the only way that the Arabs know calm is by strength.
No, that's too cerebral. He would have said, you guys keep it up. We're coming over there to help them, and we're going to crush you once and forever. That's the way he would talk. That's what he would say. Not this political speak here. But you had a point then Michelle, send us that Fort Lauderdale. Did you get it?
I wanted to actually give some up-to-date news that came up now on I-24, and it really demonstrates the Jewish.
Oh, no, close the windows, hurry up.
The
How's
Jew-
it supposed to
It's
rain?
raining.
It's never
Gotta
supposed
close
to rain.
windows.
Close your windows.
I-
Close way. It
I'm
came
never
out of
doing that
nowhere.
again.
But
I tell everybody to close the windows. I left them open today because I checked. No rain today, and it's raining, Claire.
Every day you do that.
I know.
it's Florida. It rains.
Monte Cristo.
But I just wanted to share what the Israeli, meaning the Jewish response, even at the time of war. Did you know that the IDF is bringing sick patients from Gaza? Despite the rocket fire, they are bringing sick patients into Israel to treat them. That is the Israeli Jewish response, that even in a time of war, they are bringing sick patients into Israel to treat them. I wonder if they would do that on the other side. What do you think, Tom?
I don't think so. You know, that's.
You want to play the video?
Well, I want to play the other one first.
Got it.
No, you got the Fort Lauderdale protest?
Attempted lynching.
No, that's not it.
Is that it?
No, we'll play it tomorrow. It's a bunch of crazies on the corner in Fort Lauderdale with a bullhorn, just yelling, cursing horribly, blaming Jews for everything, telling Jews to get out of the country, stepping on the Israeli flag, waving a Palestinian flag. I think it's an indication of things to come in the United States if this continues. But we will close our show. Let's get a closing thought. Claire, take a minute or so, your closing thought. Then we're going to close with sort of a metaphor. The video you'll see is a metaphor of what has happened over 4,000 years when you try to eliminate the Jews. Go ahead, Claire.
I guess I would just say that the people around the world who are people of justice and what is right have to stand with Israel. Israel is under attack from enemies that are enemies of all of us, enemies that want terror and destruction and death of the Jewish people. We have to. This is our time to stand with the Jewish people. Stand with Israel.
Your thoughts?
Yeah. And we pray for the peace and security and to remain a one-state solution, and for the world to recognize that this isn't about just Jerusalem. This isn't about specific territory. They say from the river to the sea, they want to destroy all of Israel. They want to take over Israel. They want the Jews in the ocean.
No, you're wrong, Susie. They don't want to destroy all of Israel. They want to kill every Jew in Israel.
And kill
from
every
the
Jew.
river to the sea.
The sea.
Yeah.
That's right.
Free of
And that
Jews.
we are not safe here either, nor are we safe anywhere in the world. So what happens over there in Israel affects every single person in the world, and certainly every Jew in the world.
And if you're predisposed to saying, well, it's just a fringe group, when you take 1.3 billion people and you say fringe, give me a number, and 19 people changed the course of the world in 2001. So you don't need a whole lot of fringe people, though these are doctrinally sound individuals living out Islamic scripture.
So the fringe ones are the ones who are not hating Jews. Those are the fringe ones.
It's been said that if you're to be a good Muslim, you got to not follow the Quran, and if you follow the Quran from a Western point of view, you're a bad person because of the teachings of the Quran, according to the West. But if you don't follow your own book, you're a good person. That's stuff for followers of Islam to consider. All right, Mark, show us our metaphor for those who have tried to destroy Israel for 4,000 years. Check out this video, and we'll close on this. We don't see anything, Mark.
I didn't see
No
anything.
we didn't see
Yeah, you
anything.
did?
Nope, didn't
Because
play.
I'm not watching it there. Play it again.
Gotta come up on the screen. It's not playing
It's
here.
playing. It's playing on not playing there. That's Claire.
It's not playing there either.
It
I
is.
could see it.
You saw it?
Oh, okay.
How the heck do you see
All
it?
right. Glad you saw it. We didn't.
All right, for those who didn't see it, some crazy, oh wait, is that it now?
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, here it
There's
goes.
a
Now it's
delay.
playing.
There's a delay, I think.
That's the delay.
Yeah, it's a long delay.
Okay.
Oh, before we get it. He lights the Israeli flag on fire and then he catches on fire. So don't play with fire. is a
Don't
lesson.
play with fire.
All right, it's 10:33. We're going to take a break. Depending on what's going on, we'll put out an email if we're going to have an afternoon show. Otherwise, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, we'll be here and we're going to put a bunch of videos together that Michelle's been sending and others have been sending. And we'll get a couple of people. I got some people lined up from Israel coming on. So goodbye, everybody. Thanks for
Claire.
watching. Tell your friends
Thank
to
you,
tune
Claire.
in. 9 o'clock
Thank
tomorrow.
Thank you guys all.
Thank you
Bye,
very, very
everybody.
much.